Hi everyone, welcome to my studio. And today is Thursday, so it's time to continue on our journey into doing a stack and whack quilt. So last week we prepared our fabric, made it however many layers, made them so that they were all identical, and we cut wedges in whatever size that we were interested in. So I want this one to be 8 wedges to go around a full circle. So I've cut it. So now we're ready to sew these together. And this is where the fun begins. And this is where it becomes addictive. Last week was the hardest part of all of it. That really was the hardest part, was getting all those layers lined up perfectly, get the wedges cut, making your own wedge template if you needed to, which I did. Most of the time I'm going to use my 30-degree ruler, which is my favorite to use because it only requires 12 repeats. This one has, how many? This one has 8 repeats on it. So, and I'm using as a 45-degree wedge. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this machine up. I'm going to set it up for a straight stitch, and I'm going to be using my 1/4-inch foot, and I'm going to set my stitch length to a 2.0 because we're not going to be doing any back tacking. Oh, wait a minute. Not yet anyway. Okay, we will be doing some back tacking later on. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, now I'm ready to sew my wedges together. So I'm just simply going to fold them in half, right sides together. Start at the point. I have my machine set at a 2.0 stitch length in center needle position, and I am using my 1/4-inch foot. Okay. And I'm just going to chain piece these together. I like to start at the corner, that way I know the edges are going to be even, and work my way to the center. You don't need to pin. Okay, now comes the fun part. Last week was the hardest because we were having to select the fabric, make the wedges, decide. You had a lot of decisions to make last week. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to first press this to set that seam, and just make a crease down the center. I want to clip the corner. Okay. Open this up and open the seam. You can finger press it open, but I want to align the center of the seam with this creased center line that I did just a second ago. Okay, and then press that. Turn it right sides out. Take the point turner, give it a nice sharp point, realign the pressing. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to press all of these, and then this is where this magic starts. You're going to just love this. What I don't do is I don't clip that really close. Leave at least a 1/2 inch tail on it, and that way it won't ever come out. Okay, again, press in half. Clip, finger press the seam open. Okay. Okay, turn it right sides out. And press the point. You want a nice sharp point. Again, line up this seam with this center pressing mark. Okay, I have 4 sets already sewn. The wedges are already sewn, nice and peaked. So I have them pinned together because you don't want to get them mixed up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one and we'll start to sew it. Now I'm going to start to sew them 2 by 2. Giraffes, this looks really cute. I'm going to put these right sides together. I'm going to start at the edge. However, I'm going to start a little bit in and I'm going to back tack till 1 stitch off and then continue going. And the problem with back tacking is sometimes it can get stuck. There we go. There we go. Again, I'm going to chain piece these because then I don't have to worry about them getting stuck. And I'm going to sew from outside in a pair. I don't have to back tack the end. The reason I'm not starting in the center and stitching my way out, because that would be easier that way, is the fact that I want to make sure that they're even right at the edge. Okay, so I'm going to start a little bit in and back tack till I'm off, and then stitch back on and then even this up, and here we go. That way, if your fabric grows towards the center, it's not a problem because the center is going to be covered by an applique circle. Now that I've put them 2 by 2, so I wanted to make sure that they match here. Okay, and you can press them open now or later, it's up to you. And actually you have a choice of either pressing them all in one direction or opening the seams. I prefer the flat seams because it just lays a little flatter, especially right here. Okay, and so now that I have 2 by 2, I'm going to sew into 4ths. Okay, and then this 2. Okay, it's starting to look like something. Then I'm going to sew these 2 together. And now the last 2 together. Start here and go back until the needle is just off, and then forward. Okay, isn't that darling? Okay, so now I'm going to press it, and usually if I end up with a little puffiness on the inside, that means that you just need to give this a little bit of a pull on the outside as you're pressing it. The outer edge is a little bit short. There you go. Okay, how cute is that? Oh, that's adorable. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and sew the other 7 wedges, and then we'll take a look and see what we've got. But this is where it becomes addictive, and you just can't wait to see the next one. Okay, here's a problem I sometimes encounter when I'm doing this. I sort of misjudged and I didn't cut this point. See how that's blunted there? It's not really a problem when you're doing them like this because you're going to be folding this in half like that. And you're going to be sewing from here to here. But look how much is taken up by just the fold. So that's really not going to come into play. It's far enough outside of it that it's not. Now if it had gone all the way over to here, that would have been an issue. But by the time you sew it, And see, it doesn't match here now, and that's okay, but that's not going to affect anything. And I'll just press it open and turn it. Poke it out. Poke out the corner. And then seam that. See, it's not shown on the front at all. See, it's safely tucked back here, doesn't affect anything, and we'll continue to go on. Okay, look how darling these turned out. So what I'm going to do is give these a good press with some spray starch. Next thing we will do is select the background fabric and the fabric for the center, and I will show you how to do that. Okay, so now, but you can either press all these open, which would be a little more time consuming. I'm just going to spin them, which will make it easier. So how I will press this is to go like this and press it open. Or just do all these first. And usually what I do is I'll turn it on the wrong side, and I'm just going to quickly spin these. So I'm just going to press them all in a circular just to get it trained. Okay, that gets all the seam allowances sort of going in the same direction. Okay, and then I'm going to open the seams, and here comes Lily. Lily, you need to go. Seriously, cat. And then I'm going to press these open, spinning it as I go. If they don't want to lay exactly flat, you may have to do a little stretching. And I'm going to do this on the big ironing board. Spritz this with some spray starch, and then just give it a little tug on, and usually what pulls is these outside. If it's too far off, you know, if you've got a lot of puckering going on, what you can do is come up underneath here and just take little, maybe not even a 1/16 of an inch, angling it from the center to the outside, from the center of the wedge to the inside edge. And that will also help if it's too far gone. If you've tested your template with just some scraps, and then you test your 1/4 inch seam, make sure you've got a nice accurate 1/4 inch seam, you usually don't have too much trouble. These have turned out so cute, and I'll just show these to you. The next step is to find background fabric that you want to use. You want to determine how big of blocks you need to get. This is, you could set them either with the points on the edges. I'll just say this is the block size. Or if you turn them this way, it takes up slightly less room. So it depends on how you want to orient the block on your background fabric. That's up to you. If I set these on point, then I need 14, they're 14 inches across. If I set them so that the seams are on the cross hairs, then they are only 13 inches wide. So I would say if I was going to put them this way, I'd need a 15-inch block. And if I'm putting them this way on there, I would use a 16-inch block. I'm most likely to use a 16-inch block because I think they just look nicer like that. Okay, let's take a look at them. These are just so cute. So they all look totally different. Look at that. I love that. And look, that looks, can you believe this is all the same fabric? Look at that. I'm most likely going to select something in this mint green. I don't really know. There's nothing in my stash that really makes me happy. So I'm going to take these blocks over to the fabric store and look and pick out what I like for the background fabric. I'm probably going to pick 2 greens, and I'm probably going to dig these greens out, which is this light green and a medium green. And I think I'll do the background in the light green and sashing in the dark green. This would make a really cute baby quilt for a little boy. Look at this one. It looked like they're playing Ring Around the Rosie. And this one looks like a flower. I don't even know what that is. I think that's the zebra. The inside of the zebra makes like a flower. And these look like, I don't know what, but and I like the little monkeys peeking out the corners. And then here's the monkeys in the center. I mean, they're just all so unique. And this is what is the addictive quality about this type of technique, is because you don't know what they're going to look like until you've sewn them up. I took my blocks over to the fabric store, and these are the fabrics I selected. I selected this as my background fabric, and what I did is I auditioned every piece on it. This is what I decided I'm going to use for my backing, so I'll set that aside. Okay, and as I just place them here, how does that look? That looks really cute. I've decided to set these on point with the points on the outside. I could set them this way, which would show more of the background fabric. Actually, I think that's what I'll do. That'll show a little more. And I'm just going to put these on top of each other. There's none of these blocks that don't go with this fabric. So I think this is going to work for all of them, but you always check it. Okay. And 8. Okay. This is what I've decided to use for my sashing on the outside between each block, and also for the circles. Let's make the circles. Okay, now what size circle do we want to use? It actually depends. When I did this one, my repeats were, I wanted to get more repeats per cut, and I think it was like a 12-inch repeat. So I could get two rows, because this template is about 6.5 inches wide. So what I did instead, I just cut these along the edge. I cut the 2 rows and I made these fit. Well, left a big circle in the middle. In fact, they were so big, I ended up taking my embroidery machine and I digitized a little design. It wouldn't look so big, especially since it was black. Sometimes the holes in the middle are different sizes, and that can happen too. So these are all pretty much the same size. I have these circles from Karen K. Buckley. It's called Perfect Circles, and they have all different cut sizes, and I've got them ranging from little tiny all the way up to like 6 and 8 inches. I have so many circles, depending. I believe I used something this big for those black circles, but I don't need anything that big. Let's see how big we should make it so we can audition the sizes. And I'll take, I just want to see them better. Okay. That's a little on the small side. The reason is it's giving me less than 1/4 inch to sew from. And if this isn't perfectly circular, you're going to have some problems. Okay, this one I think is just about the right size, but I'm going to check it. What I'm looking for is that I have about at least 1/4 inch of fabric underneath of this ring, and I'm just going to check all of these to see if this is going to work on all of them. Some maybe fit better than others. Okay, that one is good. That one was close. And see, this one isn't even round. And that's okay too, as long as by the time we're done, it looks like it is. That'll be cute. That just barely hangs out. That looks good. Alrighty, and this one is a little on the odd shape, but it does work. Okay, so I'm going to use this one. So I've got a strip of the fabric I want to use. Okay, and I'm going to use my friction pen, and I'm going to draw 8 of these, leaving a seam allowance. Or I'll just do one for now. Here's my circle drawn. I'm going to cut it about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Make sure that you are sewing on the right side of the fabric. After you've sewn this, you put this on the table. Put this in the middle. Hold it in the center and pull tight, just like you're making a yo-yo. And I'm going to tie a knot. Snip that and save it for the next one, because you're going to do 8 of these. Okay, so I'm going to start by taking a hot dry iron, and I'm just going to push from the side with a dry iron. This gets it started. Don't do too much at one time. Okay. Then you're going to take some spray starch, ordinary spray starch, put it in a little container, just spritz it. Don't need much. And a paintbrush helps. And you're just simply going to put a little bit of spray starch over and paint the edges, especially the edges. Okay. Come back with your iron and just use the tip of the iron. Come in like 1/8 of an inch. Don't do much more than that. This is how you get perfect circles, and this works no matter how big or small your circles are. Okay, then I'm going to come in a little more. If you go in too far too soon, you're going to create pleats. Okay. You don't want a hot iron. You want to have a medium temperature iron. This is just heat resistant template plastic, and you don't want to melt it. Okay, let it cool completely. This is one you can work on the next one. Let these cool completely. Okay, and then just take, snip, reach in, pull it out, sort of turn it over a little bit. Heat set it down. Okay, now you have the perfect circle. Okay, I'm going to go make 7 more. Now I'm ready to put the circles on in the center. Lay that flat. Everything's pressed nicely. I'm going to fold this in half and then in quarters and just finger press it. On this fabric, I don't want to use the friction pen, simply because sometimes the friction pen can bleach out the dye on your fabric. So I am going to just put the glue here. Right on the seam allowance. Center it using those marks. Okay. And I use the marks, but I don't like the way it looks, so no one's going to know if I shift it up a little bit. It's still a little off. There. It isn't exactly in the middle according to those lines, but visually it is. Okay. So now I've hit this, and now the Elmer's glue is just simply adhered. And you don't need to use pins when you do the applique stitch. Okay, I'm setting up this machine for a pin stitch. And what a pin stitch is, it's a variation of the blanket stitch, where a blanket stitch is usually going to go forward forward, back, forward, side, side, like that. On my machine, it's stitch number 2-04, which is called a shell tuck edge, is the name of the stitch. However, we're going to change some things on it. Normally it's a wide and a long stitch, and what it is it's for creating, you know, at the edge of a rolled hem that sometimes it'll look like little scallops. Well, that's what this does. Reset. Okay, here's what the stitch normally looks like. It normally looks like it's zigzagging off to the right. We want it to change. So here is the stitch. It's 2.04 and it goes 3 stitches forward and 1 zigzag to the right. But the zigzag is a 4 length. And here I'm going to show you what it's going to look like and its default. I'm going to do this on just this piece of stabilizer here. Okay. Obviously way too big. Okay. See, here's the stitch. It's way too big. So what we want to do is, first of all, I want to mirror image it. So in other words, I want it to zigzag off to the left, not to the right. Okay, it's this icon right here that's going to mirror image it. Notice now the stitch jumps to the other side, which is fine. Okay, but I don't want a long stitch length. I want that stitch length to be about 1.0. Then its stitch length is 2.5, and I want that, instead of being 2.5 the normal, I want to drop that down to 1.4. In other words, it's going to go really tiny. So the stitch by itself. Also, I want to change to the open toe foot, not the regular one. It's also a good idea to put the pivot feature on, and the pivot feature is right here. If you have an icon that looks like this, it looks like a little presser foot with a needle down, and so that is your pivot feature. So, and this is what the stitch will look like. Always do a test. Tiny. See how little? It barely takes a zigzag at all. I've cut out these little bits of stabilizer, and it's a good idea to use these. Okay, I'm going to take this, and just before I stitch, I'm going to slide it underneath. And it's just a little piece of stabilizer. We're going to tear it off. Use a tearaway. Okay, lower my presser foot, and I'm going to just put that needle. My needle is literally on the right edge of the fabric. Okay, so see, it just takes one single little bite. Take about three or four stitches. Stop, let it pivot, turn it. You want this edge of the applique right here to almost be coming straight at you. Just barely want it to touch. Try to turn it as much as possible, but you really can't do too much. It's getting away. Take your time. Okay, when you see this thread where you started, just cut it off. We're going to run over it, so there was no need to back tack. Sorry, right here. Okay, sorry there. I'm going to hit the reverse key right here, and it's going to do a lock stitch. And cut. Inspect it carefully. You want to make sure that you caught it. If not, go back and catch any spots that you missed. And actually, that isn't bad. When you're finished, just tear off the stabilizer and clip any loose threads. to get it out of the middle. Just shake it and give it a little pull, and there, it's out, and you're done. And you want a little bit of dimension to this little, make it look like a button in the middle. Take a little circle of batting, just a little pieces of batting, and what I would do is just simply fit it in here, fit it up underneath there, and just press it down. It's going to stay. Once you quilt it, you're going to be securing this area. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so now I'm ready to put the Dresden plate onto the background fabric. So here is where I have folded this into quarters like that. I'm going to line it up, and let's just see how I like that. Maybe here. Actually, I like that because it gives me a little more white space and that I can use when I'm quilting. So I'm going to I'm using my little mat, my wool mat. Okay, so what I'm going to do is once I have it laid out, I want my iron nice and hot. I'm going to use my glue. You can use the liquid or the glue stick, it doesn't matter, either one will work. And I'm just going to, just along the edge, I don't want a lot of glue, mostly get them at the points. I'm going to put glue on, especially on the points. I don't worry about this glue gumming up my needle, because this is nothing but starch in a tube. Okay, and it's purple. What I like about it is that it's purple. You can see where you've gotten it and where you haven't. And this is just going to baste it down. Okay, so I'm going to lay this back down. Make sure I'm lining up the seam with the crosshair. And then we're going to heat set this into place. Okay, put glue here. You don't have to glue in the middle. Okay, now that I've got half of that glued, I will peel this back and do the other side and glue down this side. Down and heat set this. Okay, check it, and it's glued down. If you like, you can actually put a little extra pressure here on the back and glue it and heat it from the back, and that helps drive the glue into the fibers and you get a better baste. Okay, let's go to the machine. I'm using stitch 2.04 on my machine, which is that pin stitch that we talked about before, with a stitch width of 1.0 millimeters and the stitch length of 1.4. What you want to do is to make sure that your stitches, here's one, are close enough together to catch everything so you don't have any gaps. And I want it to just barely catch the edge of the fabric. I'm going to use a thread that actually matches the background fabric, but you could use, you could actually use the invisible nylon. However, I don't recommend using the invisible thread, either nylon or polyester, in anything that can be for a baby, because that thread is notorious for skipping stitches. And you don't want little fingers and toes to get caught in those stitches, cutting off circulation to the baby. So don't use that nylon or polyester invisible thread on anything for a baby quilt or a baby anything. Okay, so like I said, you want it to just barely catch a thread at the edge. I used a 1.5 because I thought it would be easier, and it was. However, you can, now this is a 1.5 width, you can really notice the stitch a lot more. So I dropped it back down to 1.0 and I'm a lot happier. I recommend, you need good glasses. I have bifocals. I have specific glasses even for sewing that set at a mid distance, just perfect for sewing. However, I want accuracy, and I got these things that I really like. You just put them on over top of your glasses, and it magnifies them. It doesn't mess up your vision. They're called Mighty Sight, and I got these online, and look, they even light up, so they help illuminate what you're doing. So these have been very helpful in doing any kind of close work too. I even checked on eBay. They're on sale right now for $7.55 on eBay. I'm going to start in the middle. Okay, I'm dropping that right here so that the needle is right in line with the edge of the fabric. And you just stitch. Like I said, you just wanted to catch a thread of that edge of the motif. Okay, and then you pivot. It might be, sometimes I will even do a couple of stitches this way. And head on that way. If you missed it, it's okay to raise this up a little bit. Try and do this one-handed. Okay, come back a little bit. And not let it go until it catches the corner. One more. Okay, one more. There, see how it just caught right into the edge of the fabric? And off we go. See, that is definitely didn't catch. You want to make sure you take your time. Okay. Turn. It didn't catch. Sometimes I will make it catch, but I'll just scoot it over a little bit. Take one stitch into it, that way I know it's caught, and then resume. This you want to take your time and not rush, because you want to make sure you catch these edges. I had to widen the stitch width to 1.5. There are just days where you can see better than other days, and today's one of those days where 1.0 isn't catching it. So, you know, it's fine. It's more important to be done than to be perfect. And now back tack at the end. And it's finished. Okay, that turned out rather nicely. Here's the finished block. I missed a few spaces. I will go back and pick. See, I missed right here. So I'm going to go back and fix that. Remember I told you we would use pretty much every square inch of this fabric that we possibly could. So I have two pieces about this big left over. They're about maybe 18 by 18 inches, and I have two of them, one from each side. So I might do, I'm not sure what I'll do with that yet. I also told you to save these are the ends from when we were cutting our wedges, so I told you to save them. Well, what can you do with this? Okay, look at this. Isn't this darling? Okay, so I have these squares or these rectangles that I could use somewhere else. I could use it in the center. I'm not sure how yet, but I could. Or I can use it on the back. I could use it as part of the boxes that I'm planning on making in a few weeks. Who knows? So I'm going to show you how I put these together. Okay? So we have a sort of a right angle triangle. Same from school. We have a bias edge on this side, and we have a straight grain here and here. The way this one is cut up. They may not all be the same. So I'm going to take and I'm going to sew first of all the biases together. So I would match it up this way, and I want to make sure I end up with as big a strip as I possibly can. So I am matching this up as far, about 1/4 of an inch, so it'll disappear. Okay, and both sides. And then I'm just going to simply sew them with 1/4 of an inch. And then next I'm going to press the seams open. So I'm just going to first finger press them open, because you do want this to be as flat as possible. Then I'm going to take this and sew this, the 4, I have, out of the 8 pieces, I have 4 rectangles. So I'm going to sew these 4 rectangles together into a strip. If they aren't exactly even, then what you do is sort of match them in the middle, as best as you can. See, you have a whole secondary design. Again, I'm going to pull these open. If you have a little extra bit, just start them off. See these parts hanging out. They're just stacking them off. Don't worry if these seams are not absolutely perfect. That's just fine. Remember, this is a bonus block to use however we like. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and square it up. So I'm just sort of centering this here and here. And sometimes I will take this line, one of the horizontal lines, and I will just match up that line with one of these lines. And you don't plan how big these blocks are. This is just a bonus. Right. And here's your bonus block. And they all look, again, each one is unique and different. Okay, that's about all I have for you guys today. We have already made all the blocks, and next time I'm going to show you how I'm going to quilt this Dresden Plate quilt and assemble it at the same time using a quilt-as-you-go process. So, until then, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be advised of my future video releases. And until then, see you next time. Bye.